And if you just do that, your reeds will be perfect every day. How is it that I can get the best results from my reeds, and primarily looking at this question of when should I stop playing a reed? It's kind of a more challenging question than we may think. When we first started out playing, back in the beginning, in years probably 1 through 3, when we're little, if you've started playing as an adult or as a more mature person, those numbers are a little bit different. But how is it that you know? In the beginning, you tended to break your reed, and that's how you knew you needed a new one. Or your teacher would berate you for needing a new one. That was the primary way in which you changed reeds. And as we progress and progress and progress, we break far fewer reeds, which is a good thing, but then it calls into question, what mechanism by which do we use to decide when to change reeds? The answer to that, for me, you rotate your reeds. But you don't just rotate reeds you have 4 reeds and that's good enough. That's a good first step, to have 4 reeds that are ready to play that you're kind of always rotating around. This is going to do a few things for you. This is going to increase the chances that you have a good reed. It's going to increase the length of playability of these reeds. A lot of times if we are practicing at home, the room that we're in at home is a little bit different than the room that we're playing in a performance or in a rehearsal or wherever you are. That could mean we need a little different strength of a reed. So if you've got 4 reeds in good playing condition, rotate those around. The problem with only doing that is that it tends to be that those 4 reeds sort of come to the end of their life at the same time. That's not terrific. So I've got a system where I've got 6 reeds ready to play. They're good. I've got 6 reeds that are about a week and a half behind in their development, and I'm working on them a little bit. They're getting ready. And then I've got 6 reeds that are relatively new. You can scale this however you'd like. I used to do 10 reeds because 10 reeds come in a box, and that was a little bit easier for me to just manage that way. But what I found is that's very time consuming, and that is the main downside to using a system where we have got the reeds that we play, we've got the reeds that we are almost ready to play, and the reeds that we are just in the early stages of figuring out whether they're good or bad. It's time intensive. And my suggestion is to say, okay, you do a large part of your practicing on the reeds that are almost ready, that you're just doing a little bit of work on, and if you're doing enough performing, you use the performance reeds for the performances only. Except for on the day of the performance, you got to check them out. You got to make sure they're all good, all that kind of stuff. Don't do anything crazy, like show up to a performance without having tried the performance reeds at home. Don't do that. So then you got the reeds that you're just breaking in. And those reeds are it's a little unclear what's going to happen with them. The 2 downsides to this is the one I already mentioned, which is you have to plan and organize, and that is a bit of a pain. The other problem for me, and the past 2 years, if you're watching this in the future, maybe COVID is in the past, but if you get COVID and you've just played all your reeds, then you got to throw them all away. Or even if you get sick with something else, I get a little bit weird about that kind of stuff. I know that germs die, but I also tend to throw away every reed that I played that I felt like I maybe was ill while I played. That can be a challenge. So those are the 2 main reasons that my system is difficult and a bit of a pain. And eventually answering this question of how is it that you know when your reed's done if it's not broken? There's 2 other things that can make a reed no good, in my estimation, one of which is that it's warped. It's hard to take a picture of this, it's hard to represent this, but a warped reed can come in 2 different varieties. One is that the tip of the reed is warped, and it'll be wavy. We've all seen this when we pull the reed out of our mouth and it's got waves at the end of it. Oftentimes, if I just throw it in the water and let it sit for a while, those go away, but I always feel a little uncomfortable playing on that reed. The other way a reed can warp is it will not lie flat on the mouthpiece. And you can sand those down. You can use a reed geek. You can use even just a reed knife and just flatten that out. There's lots of ways to do that. I've got a great video, at least according to me, about that. I'll link it here at the end, about how to take care of reeds, how to prepare them, how to make sure that they're flat. The way to check to see if it's flat is to take the mouthpiece, put it on the big part of your hand, right there, and so it's closed, and then suck in. And it should pop. Then it's not warped on the back. It's sealing. If it's not sealing, it's going to squeak a lot. And if it's wavy at the tip, it's going to feel a little bit weird. The resistance is going to be weird. It probably won't squeak, but it's not going to feel very good. This is all about having a reed that gives you, I'm ripping this term off, cooperative resistance. And that when you press and you go for it, it gives you good stuff back. And a warped reed's not going to do that. So if a reed is broken, if a reed is warped, and the third reason for which reeds get retired in my life is that sometimes, not too often, they get moldy. And that's gross. And I don't want that in my mouth, and I don't want that to be a part of my life. So if a reed gets moldy, it's like black on the backside of it, even just a little bit, I tend to, get rid of that one. And I try and handle my reed business, meaning my reed case, my reed storage, how I deal with it so that that doesn't happen. That happens when reeds are stored too wet. If you're using one of the reed cases I use that has humidity inside it, it's closed and it's got a little sponge. If you make that too wet, you will get mold on your reeds, and it's a challenge. So learning how to use this for me was a big deal, because then I can regulate my reeds a little bit to make sure that they don't warp. That helps them not warp, but I do have to be sure that they don't get moldy, which is a balancing act, and there's a learning curve involved with that. I've got a great reed case video. If you want to watch that, I'll link that too. So those are the 3 reasons for which you should just get rid of a reed. But let's say your reed's not broken. It's not warped, and it's not moldy. That doesn't mean it's going to work. And what it does mean, if you do your balancing, you do the thing, you do make sure that your reed's going good, congratulations, and you've kept your reed from being moldy, it doesn't warp, and it's not broken, still, this formerly crown jewel of your reed arsenal has an expiration date. But it's hard to figure out what it is. Oftentimes, if I'm just playing a reed, it feels pretty good to me. And I just, if I'm using that reed a lot, I don't notice the deterioration of the sound and the response and the sort of way that it feels. Because it's just sort of like a shoe that gets old. So it happens a lot faster than with shoes. And before long, you've got a hole in your shoe, and then you got a problem. But with the reed, it's not really about the sound so much as it is about the feeling and the response. And how do you know? If you have these 6 reeds, for me, going, and they're performance reeds, and they start to go, the only way that I can actually really confidently identify that there's diminishing returns on these reeds is by having these almost ready reeds ready to go. This is a reed that I've been playing for a little while. I played it in public for money a lot of times. It's okay. It's okay. I feel pretty good playing that reed. Now, I wonder if I go to one of my reeds that I would consider on deck. It's almost ready to go. Actually, this reed actually happens to be ready to go. Let's see what happens if I put it on. That reed feels a lot better to me. The magic of the clarinet is we don't really know how it sounds to anyone listening, because they hear the front end of it, we hear the back end of it. But this feels like it sounds better to me. I do think it sounds better from this end, and I definitely can feel the benefit of it not being, for lack of a better word, played to death. I've got 5 more that are in this basically same condition. And so I can get rid of that reed that formerly, I'm not going to lie, I made a lot of money playing that reed. And I enjoyed every second of it. But now it's time for that reed to go. That reed, we got to let it go before it falls off the edge, because it's about to. But the only way that I can really feel like I can identify that is by having these other reeds in preparation and ready to go. And then soon those reeds move up into the performance case. The reeds that I've been working on move into the almost ready, in the bullpen, so to speak. And then I get some new reeds going. And that's how I end up having reeds that, by and large, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to play at any point in time. It does take planning. It does take work. And if I do get sick, for example, when I did have COVID, I threw away a lot of reeds. And I think doctors would say, you don't really need to do that. But I'm an alarmist, so I did. In any case, this is how you do it. And now I've got this reed, and I'm throwing the other reed away. You notice I tossed it on my desk, right? That reed's going. I feel much happier with that reed. I feel much, particularly in the upper register. I feel secure that I can get that to play at a low volume, a high volume, and all the different registers, because this reed hasn't been used that much. And it's ready to go. I'll be using this on my next performance. So there you have it. That's how you know when a reed's dead. It's only by comparison to other reeds, which is why it's good to have reeds in rotation. And for me, having them separated into performance reeds, really good practice reeds that are on the way, and then the reeds that are just getting going. Because then I can really tell what are the differences between these reeds. Because I can get really comfortable playing on a reed for a very, very long time if I'm not careful. And then when that reed goes, you're in trouble because you got nothing. So that's my suggestion to you. I hope it's helpful. I'm going to leave links to reed cases, the reed case video, my reed tools, a link to the reed video, all of it, so you can check it all out. My entire process is there for you. I hope it's somewhat helpful. It's kind of pedantic, but that's who I am. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.